Welcome to this presentation on the PUPP Act, brought to you by My Dog is My Home, UU's for Social Justice, the UU Animal Ministry, and with Reverend Daniel Lawler of the UU Congregation of the Hudson Valley. I'm Reverend John Gibb Millspod, the Executive Director of the UU Animal Ministry. And so that we all know who's in the room, some of us have been putting into the chat, and you're now invited to put into the chat your name, your state or province or territory, and if you like, your preferred pronouns and a land acknowledgement if you're called to do so. And I would also invite you to share by way of an icebreaker in the chat, whether you're here more from a sense of compassion or more from a sense of curiosity. So you could just write that one word, compassion or curiosity. And as you're doing that, I want to remind folks of the format/agenda. I will start sharing my screen in order to do that. It'll take me just a minute to get going here. So you should be seeing a big purple screen, and momentarily you'll see something else. Okay, so hopefully now you're seeing the agenda for the evening, which begins with this housekeeping and welcome that we're doing right now. Then an introductory presentation by the UU Animal Ministry lasting about 5 minutes. Our chalice lighting, a presentation by My Dog is My Home lasting about 25 minutes. Then time for Q&A, which is not a time for statements, but is a time for questions and answers. And then extinguishing the chalice and what we call a soft close at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific. Oh, sorry, 6 Pacific. I'm actually in the midst of COVID, so forgive my little verbal slips here and there. But a soft close means that all participants are free to roll off immediately or to linger as you like for a more informal discussion along the lines of a post-service coffee hour. So with that, let's move to a presentation by me from the UU Animal Ministry. And this is just to set the stage and get us in touch a little bit with our compassion and respect and our interest in animal welfare and our interest in humanitarianism as well. I invite you to begin by thinking about the companion animals that are in your family or in the households of your extended family or friends. And I invite you to write the names of those pets in the chat. And as you do, call to your mind and your heart their significance, how you or those who love them feel about them, the bond. And as you write their names in the chat, I have a few true or false questions for you to consider if you enjoy multitasking. Oh, but it looks like the slides aren't advancing for some reason. Why is that? I'm getting a different view than I got when I ran this before. So let's see if now it works. Okay, good. I'm sorry. So when I went over the agenda, you were looking at the agenda. Okay, here we go. So you're writing names of companion animals in the chat. And as you do that, I have some true or false questions for you. True or false, more American families include companion animals than include children. And I'm just going to invite you to answer for yourself whether that's true or false. I'll give you a second to think about it. And that one is actually true. According to a Pew survey, about 97% of American families who have companion animals consider them members of the family. And there are more pets in families than there are more families with pets than families with children. And actually, in the majority of folks who have companion animals say that their pets are as much a part of their family as any human member. Secondly, Do you think it's true or false that we spend more money on pet food than on baby food? That one's also true. And finally, there are more dogs in the US than there are people in every country in Europe. That one is false because Germany has more people than the US has dogs. But there are more dogs in the US, 70 million, than there are in any of the other largest European countries, aside from Germany, the UK, France, Italy, or Spain. So why is it that so many of us choose to share our lives with companion animals? I invite you to jot a note or just hold a thought for yourself as to why it is that we have animals in our lives. In addition to the reasons that you're thinking of, here are some of the reasons that I've gathered. And if you look at this list, you can think about whether it's true not only for yourself, but how it might be true for someone who is experiencing homelessness and how very significant that bond might be. Of course, we're here not just to talk about animals, but to talk about people as well. Unitarian Albert Schweitzer is one of the many Unitarian and Universalists who helped set this precedent of saying that there's enough love to go around and that the humane impulse that calls us to care for the dispossessed and neglected calls us to focus our compassionate attention on animals and on people as well. When we treat love for people and animals as a zero-sum game, both specific people and animals will lose. There's enough love to go around. Last quiz of this presentation. Which organization did Unitarian Henry Berg found? The American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, known as the ASPCA, or for the prevention of cruelty to children, known as the ASPCC. It is, of course, a trick question. He did found the ASPCA in 1866, but in 1874, Berg learned of a 9-year-old girl named Mary Ellen Wilson, who very sadly was being beaten daily by her stepmother, and no person or agency would intervene in what was considered a private family matter. Berg not only brought about Mary Ellen's rescue, but also developed the first US law shielding children from domestic abuse. And the next year, he founded the ASPCC in 1875. Newspapers at that time called his innovation preposterous under headlines like "Leave Our Children Alone" and "Legislation Running Mad." But Berg replied, "Mercy to animals means mercy to mankind." So the answer to the question I asked is both. And I lift up this historical example in advance of the presentation by My Dog is My Home to elevate that Unitarians and Universalists have long understood that if the humane impulse applies at all, it applies broadly. And if it has any claim on us, it must have life not only in our private relationships, but also in our public policies. As for what you can do, it goes without saying that you can take good care of your human and non-human companions. You can recognize and honor the bonds between other people and other animals, but you can also resist violent social structures, and you can support public policies. And we're here to talk about how to do both today. I'm happy to follow up with any of you if you have questions or would like to be in conversation. Please feel free to reach out. I now turn it over to Reverend Daniel Lawler of the UU Congregation of the Hudson Valley for our chalice lighting.
Thank you so much. It's really just an honor to be here tonight. It's just a joy to see so many different faces in our Zoom space, all asking these questions about that bigger love, the love that holds both, love that holds all. And As Unitarian Universalists, we are part of a beautiful, complicated living faith tradition with communities gathered around the world from Manila to Manhattan. And we are all dedicated in our way to seek the good and live the good with love at the center. And as I'm sure happens in many of the communities of faith you know so well, we will begin our gathering tonight with a chalice lighting. The chalice is a symbol of our faith, a reminder to seek and offer compassion in a world that we all know can be quite harsh and cruel. But there's hope. And tonight, as I light this chalice and offer us a moment of pause, I ask us to stay centered with these words. Spirit of life and love, bigger than the universe, smaller than a single cell. Inspire us to be present to the aches, joys, and needs of all life in this more than human world. Remind us of the words of the ancient prophet, seek justice, seek humility. Be with us as we seek to embody our values of love unfolding, and forgive us for failing to live our dreams. Remind us that there is room for all in the house of the eternal, and that we are called to build a world where no being in need is turned away. May we covenant to protect Earth and all beings from exploitation. May we love our neighbors as ourselves. May we nurture sustainable relationships of care and respect, mutuality and justice. May we work to repair harm and damaged relationships. May we honor the dignity of every being in our thoughts, words, and actions, and commit to make amends when needed. And we ask this all through the power of love unfolding. And may those hopes, the hopes of this flame, the hopes we all bring into this space, that love be with us as we do this work tonight and in the days to come. May it be so. I'm really excited because in a moment, we're going to hear from My Dog is My Home, and just this amazing collection of people led by Christine Kim, the founder of this organization, with amazing work from Mason Castillo and Jillian McMillan. We're just doing really tremendous work advocating for pet-friendly, affordable housing and shelters across this country. It just speaks so much to our values of compassion, and it is just a genuine delight and honor to welcome Christine, Mason, and Jillian with us tonight. So welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Reverend Lawler, and also Reverend Millspaw and Pablo. It is an honor to be here. And please bear with me for just one moment as I share my screen. And I want to make sure that I am looking at the same view that everyone else is looking at. So does this screen have a My Dog is My Home logo? And okay, great. And then also, oops. Go. I have also shared my sound for video, which will come up in the next couple of slides. So again, I just want to thank you for the introduction, Reverend Daniel. It is a pleasure to be here with you and to have the opportunity to connect with the members of the Unitarian Universalist Animal Ministry and the Unitarian Universalists for Social Justice. We are very appreciative of the invitation to speak with members of your ministries about the issue at the intersection of so many areas that we care about. At the core, we are talking about the intersection of homelessness and housing insecurity, but increasingly every day, the discussion and the work includes the junctures of climate justice and immigration. But before we dive into what these intersections mean, I would like to take just a few moments to orient everyone to My Dog is My Home, the organization. My Dog is My Home is a national nonprofit organization that is dedicated to increasing access to shelter and housing for people experiencing homelessness with companion animals. Our work is on the systems change level, So while we are not the ones to directly provide the shelter and housing services to people experiencing homelessness with animals, we are working with the existing entities that do provide those services to support them in understanding the importance of keeping people and animals together, and then supporting them in the adoption and implementation of pet-friendly policies. A large part of what we do is talk about the why. Homeless services organizations are certainly tasked with a lot, and they're expected to work towards their own missions of ending homelessness with very few resources. So we're often asked why it is important to include animals in their service planning when they're already dealing with so much. And to answer that question, we could very easily cite academic research that delineates that animals are often considered members of the family. And if people experiencing homelessness are faced with a decision to choose their family or access services, many people will forgo shelter, housing, and other types of services. Or if they do choose to give up their animals, that can be a very difficult choice that adds to the trauma they have already experienced. But instead of hearing from researchers and academics, which we of course think is very important, we believe in science and the scientific process, we choose to focus on the voices of people with lived experience. Their lived experience of homelessness with an animal is expertise. And in their own words, they can tell us why it is important to keep people and animals together. So with that, I would like to share a video to help ground us in why increasing access to shelter and housing for people experiencing homelessness with animals is an important issue. So I'm going to play the short video that was made about Spirit and his two dogs, Kaya and Miniaga. And then we will hear from Jillian. My dog is my home team member who will speak to you about her own lived experience. So if I could get a thumbs up that you can hear the audio clearly, that would be wonderful.
My name is Spirit. I'm presently homeless. I'm living in an emergency shelter right now. The one thing that is important to me is the care and love of my animals, my babies. This is Miniaga. This is Kaya and Isaiah. They mean everything to me, and I mean everything to them. I was staying at home taking care of my father, but I was lonely. I decided to get a little bit of love by the name of Kaya. My father loved her at first, but as she became larger, she would always knock him down because she would always want to be hugged and jump on him. So they say, if you don't get the dog out, you need to get out. So that was the time where I said, okay, I'll get out. And I slept in my car that night. I realized that my love for my animals was the primary source of my joy, and I felt that it was time for a change. I just one day got in my car and just started driving. I had to find an emergency shelter, living on a cot in the corner of the room with my animals. And a lot of people were scared of them, but once they saw the eyes, everybody melted. All these hardcore ex-cons, all these other people that were homeless that were thrown away from their families, they seemed to gravitate toward my animals. A young lady by the name of Sonia, she allowed me to stay at the shelter, and she made it very clear that we were all to be treated as guests in the shelter just like everyone else, and it meant so much to me. So I made it my best effort to make sure there'd be no problems. Of course, the dogs themselves, they're in dog heaven, and they've adjusted quite rapidly to the city mode. The way I get food for my babies, of course, there's a great organization called Paws of LA. They supply basic needs, canned food, dry food, and they also give shampoos, and they also do vaccinations and things like that. Now, trying to access services for myself was the hardest part because I had to find a place to leave my animals. Once we were able to get in the emergency shelter, then I was able to leave them there in a room that is comfortable. They have a fan, 3 fans actually. Just like Beyonce, she gotta have a fan all in the hair. I feel secure that they'll be okay, and I can go and do what I need to do to necessitate getting to the next level. I'm always with my animals, and I feel like something's wrong if I don't have them with me. They're just like children. They're our babies. I'm located in East LA and I love it. Coming to my studio apartment, it was a trying situation, having not only one service animal, but two service animals. So I had to do a lot of paperwork and a lot of going back and forth. But finally, with a couple of agencies' assistance, we were able to get in. The babies enjoy us a lot of parks around here. Every day they go and walk different places. They are loving it because I'm happy. Once I'm happy, they're happy, and they can just relax. With this ceiling in this apartment, this is what I've always dreamed of, a studio where I can work at and create. Look at some of the past strong individuals, African Americans particularly. I studied their lives because I want to emulate them. I believe that we can make a difference. All the greats believe that they can make a difference. And it starts with being active, being political, a deep, deep belief in change. You need love in your life, and I have unconditional love with Miniaga and Kaya. And through that, it invigorates me. It forces me to get up the next day, to see through clearly what I need to do and focus. Not for myself, but for them.
Okay, so thank you everyone for watching this short video made about Spirit, Miniaga, and Kaya. Before moving on, I just want to point out a few key direct quotes from Spirit's story. I hope you all noticed how individualized his thank you was to a young lady named Sonia in the shelter. He said, "A young lady by the name of Sonia, she allowed me to stay at the shelter, and she made it clear that we were all to be treated as guests in the shelter, just like everyone else. And it meant so much to me. So I made it my best effort to make sure that there would be no problems." Thank goodness for Sonia, and this is no longer a quote, this is me speaking, but thank goodness for Sonia. At that time in Los Angeles, that was the luck of the draw. An individual person, not the program and not the system, allowed him to stay at that shelter with his dogs, and it shouldn't be that way. Spirit also gave a shout out to an organization called Paws LA, which provided food and shampoos and other supplies for his dog. But following that, he said, quote, "Now trying to access services for myself was the hardest part because I had to find a place to leave my animals. Once we were able to get into the emergency shelter, then I was able to leave them there in a room that is comfortable. I'm feeling secured that they'll be okay and I can go and do what I need to do to necessitate getting to the next level." On the relationship he has with his animals and what they mean to him, Spirit said, "You need love in your life, and I have unconditional love with Miniaga and Kaya. And through that, it invigorates me. It forces me to get up the next day, to see through clearly what I need to do and focus, not for myself, but for them." And I think those quotes, especially that last one, it's a mic drop moment right there. There's no further interpretation necessary. So with that, I'd like to hand things over to Jillian McMillian to tell you a little bit about her own journey through the homeless services system and why she is an advocate for people experiencing homelessness with their animals today.
Well, hello, everyone. Grateful to be here. Well, I decided today that I'm just going to read something that I had written to my pets that I had lost to homelessness. Unfortunately, during that traumatic time, I had to choose between a roof and my babies. So hopefully you can get something out of this letter. Been therapeutic to me, and well, I guess I'll get started. Dear Wasabi, Sashimi, and Kit Kat, or Kitsune, I miss you so much. I'm in hopes that this letter reaches your hearts in a way that can heal all of us. I still remember when you became part of our family. Sabi and Shimi, when you came to us, Saya, my daughter, was about a year old, give or take. It was about 2010. We had recently come out of homelessness when we heard that you were born. When my sister Elaine told us that you were old enough to leave the nest, we hustled out miles out east to go get you and bring you home with us. You made our hearts full. It was incredibly warming to see you whenever we came home from being out for the day. Sabi, you would vibrate your tail with excitement. Sometimes you would run to your food bowl and start eating while meowing. There's nothing like the sound of a cat meowing while chewing. It's actually quite comical. It sounds like wah, 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 wah. What really gets me is that Saya still remembers that now at age 15, even though she was close to 2 when you would do that. Shimi, when you were excited, you would plop down on your side and just start purring. How could we not pet you when you looked like a fluffy, vibrating pillow? The two of you really were the perfect beginning to a feeling of wholeness in our family. It was me, a single mom with complex PTSD, with a curious daughter, miles away from a family we felt rejected from. We were on our own in many ways until we united with you. Your existence made me feel loved and accepted and worthy of being loved and needed. I still look at old pictures of you two cuddled up. Shimi, you were the runt, and Sabi, you were the big one. But by the time we moved to our next apartment, which was bigger in Sayville, 2 years later, Shimi was the big one. And whenever I was having symptoms of depression, the two of you would become my safe place. When I was anxious, both of you would take your positions on me and wouldn't move until I moved you. And even then, you'd make your way back to me, or I would stay close until I was still, you would stay close until I was still again. Sabi, you were anxious one yourself. You would climb up on me and stay on my chest as to calm me. Within recent years, I learned what you were actually doing. Syncing our heartbeats so that we can calm together, bringing us both to a resting heart rate. In the midst of our time in Sayville, there was a period in my life where I was having suicidal thoughts. But because of you, I wouldn't make a plan. And I was mostly bedbound. I would say mostly because I would only get up to go to the bathroom and to feed you and Saya. At that time, I only ate because I needed something in my stomach to take my meds. Yeah, it was that bad. I entered a state of chronic suicidal ideation because I couldn't bear the thought of leaving you. I could imagine a world where Sai would be safe with a family member or my best friend, but I could only see darkness when I imagined you without me. I would frequently imagine terrible tragedies that could happen and visualize you two roaming desolate streets, aimlessly trying to survive. The very thought of you not having me to care for you and keep you safe shook me to my core. It was scarier than death. And it's what kept me from making the irreversible decision to leave this earth by my own hand. And of course, the journey through ideation was rough, but you helped me keep fighting. And for you, and for Saya, and for this beautiful family. Shortly after, I registered you on the ESA.org, just in case something happened to me, or if there were an emergency. This way EMS would know to look for you and know where you belonged. As I healed, Shimi became the protector, and Sabi, you became the analyzer and the healer. Shimi, I vividly remember how protective you became when my protective sister came over. It was like a showdown. The only thing we were missing were the tumbleweeds blowing by. The growling and the hissing you let out, hiding underneath the couch as to watch Alicia's every move. It was every time she came by, and this would only happen when she came by. I knew it was a battle of who's in charge of protecting us. When Kit Kat came to us, Shimi and Sabi, you guys were not happy at first, but eventually you let her in and you treated her as if she were your own little baby. Kit, you were mostly with Saya. You made her happy. The way you would meow was so adorable. You sounded like you were saying, meow. And when we actually had a joke that you were part of, and we'd say, "What do we want? Cat, when do we want her?" And you would go, "Now." And it was just too cute. The three of you really completed our family. I miss sleeping with you. The positions you took when I would climb into bed, you had me pinned down. If I moved, one of you would go flying, so I stayed still. It was nice and warm. I felt my safest with you in my bed. There were quite a few things that led us to part ways, one of which was the emergency shelter we moved into. They refused to acknowledge the rights we had as a family. And that's for us to be together. We had to put you in with a foster. During the time between the end of 2018, the end of 2018 and the end of 2020, I felt lost without you. There were times when I would wake up in the middle of the night thinking you were pinning me down, but then I'd realize it was just a heavy spot in my comforter. And when I found out, Shimi, that you had passed away at the foster's home, I felt so sick, like my life and Saya's life had been taken. Then to think of what you were all going through there while I wasn't around to protect you, I felt guilty for years after. Even now, I still picture how terrified you are. I know logically it's not my fault, but I still carry that weight emotionally. And I fought like hell for you. Even still, I look for Sabi and Kit all the time. Today, I do my best to honor you in everything I do. Saya and I are now housed in a nice apartment with Saya's big brother for about 3 years. I started school for cat behavior in hopes to use my certification to prevent what has happened to us from happening to other families. I've been part of an organization that shares the same value of keeping families like ours together. They're called My Dog Is My Home. And with their encouragement, I'm able to tell my story to further fight for families like ours. You also now have 2 fuzzy kitty siblings named Cowboy and Bebop, and I think you would love them. We adopted them as soon as we felt safe and strong enough to love again. We will always look for you and hope that whatever you're doing and wherever you are happy. May we meet again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your letter, Jillian. It's beautiful. At this point, I would like to turn our attention to Mason Castillo, who also has a story to share, but also has a very specific perspective on this issue of co-sheltering because he lives in El Paso, Texas, and is very much at the front lines of how this issue connects to climate justice and to immigration. So please take it away, Mason.
Thank you. Let me gain my composure right now. Thank you, Jill, for your story. My name is Mason. I am a native of Mexico. I was born there, raised there, and lived homeless there for 2 years. Just like Jillian, I live with my cat in there, and unfortunately for me, I did have a home, unfortunately. I'm also transgender, so that meant that I couldn't go back home because I wasn't accepted there. Starting from the point where I was able to land safe housing, I decided that for the rest of my life, I would use my experience to try to help others. So logically, I'm with My Dog Is My Home too, but I'm also working for my local animal shelter. I saw a few people on the chat from Las Cruces were neighbors, so I would really like to connect with you guys whenever you have a chance. I currently work for the Animal Services Department of El Paso, and we service the whole county and a little bit beyond that because of the great need for space for animals coming to our town. I want to really touch base on how everything is connected, specifically when it comes to social issues. 2 important things that we need to discuss today, climate, immigration, and how they affect not only our homeless population, but all of us, especially in recent times where most people are one paycheck away from losing their homes. it's really important for us to understand the connection between all of these issues. Um, Specifically in El Paso, we do have a really high immigrant population, but some of you might remember past years, we've also had a lot of immigration from the center of Texas and from other states that have seen an increase in natural disasters. I want to start talking about the recent Texas freeze. If you can click the next slide, please. So we remember that in 2021, we know that the systems and policies created in place are not the best and are not here to really help the people that need it the most. So in 2021, Texas realized that unfortunately our power supplier, well, ERCOT actually supplies power for most of Texas, with the exception of El Paso, which is really good for me because we don't have the same issues. It wasn't enough to sustain the need of power during the Texas freeze, which again was created by the climate crisis that we have right now. It wasn't that long. It lasted just some days, but it really opened our eyes to how unprepared we are to deal with natural disasters. We had connections, my shelter had connections with some rescuers in Austin that couldn't continue going outside to try to pick up dogs and help them. We did lose a lot of animals during that time. And unfortunately, something that I think will keep happening if we don't address the issue of climate that we're currently facing. The final death toll for that disaster was 246 people. Most of them were people that were living in very precarious conditions, that didn't have a safe housing, or didn't have a way to access shelter. What this toll doesn't tell you is the amount of animals that we lost and the amount of people that unfortunately wasn't accounted for, because again, living in the streets usually means that you don't really know who's out there. I know for a fact that unfortunately 2 of our amazing rescuers in Austin lost their lives there while trying to save a lady that was under a bridge with their pets. They couldn't find the lady, and 2 of them unfortunately lost their life trying to save her. This also doesn't account for the amount of people that became homeless after the fact. People that unfortunately couldn't cover their rent anymore, or for whatever reason weren't able to go back home. This kind of situation affects everybody. And yeah, in Texas, it could be the climate, the freeze, but we also have California, Oregon, the Pacific Northwest, places that are literally on fire for the most part of the summer. Immigration is also local, and it's displacement due to these kind of situations. And the more we think about it, the more we see other places that unfortunately are going through the same situation. It's gonna create a wave of unfortunately really bad things that might happen in the future. More people losing their homes, more people losing their jobs, people that have to be relocated to other states that might be more expensive and they can no longer afford rent or any services. And again, when we're talking about climate crisis, the people that feel the full force of these kind of disasters are the people that really don't have a home and their pets. And it's very often that we forget that people have animals. One of the screenshots that I put in the presentation on how to keep your pet safe from the dangers of the Texas freeze from the Texas SPCA, they talk about bringing your pets inside. They talk about not taking your dogs out for potty for too long. But what happens when there's no inside? What happens when you really have nowhere to put them? It doesn't account for, again, the experiences of those that do not have a roof, the experiences of those that unfortunately can access the resources. I put it in there that it's important for us to remember that as this becomes the new norm, if we don't do anything to stop the climate crisis, it's going to become the new norm. We can no longer talk about the housing crisis without talking about climate change. It is important for us to be aware that most of the climate crisis is caused by laws that are not protecting our planet. And we as citizens can actually have a saying on that by supporting laws that might make it harder for people to abuse our mother nature. Um, and it's something that we have to keep in mind. Go ahead, Christine. Thank you. The human animal bond, as we put it before, it's very, very important. My city, it's very, very compassionate. I'm not native from El Paso. I'm from Mexico, like I said before, but I've seen a lot of people trying to do the right thing and using the resources that we have to be able to create a more humane and compassionate environment for everybody coming in. We get almost 7,000 people coming to the border seeking asylum from countries like Venezuela. The family from the screenshot that you see on your screens right now, they travel from Venezuela all the way to El Paso to be able to come to the border and use their right to seek asylum to find a safe haven, to feel safe in any way. Johnny's parents, they were persecuted in Venezuela because they were government workers. So staying there wasn't really an option for them. They would have put their lives at risk and they had to go somewhere. So they traveled for 3 weeks all the way from Venezuela through Mexico, finally arrived to the border to be met with, I don't even know how to put it. It's not humane to treat somebody this way. I'm gonna read the quote from Johnny. We thought we will never see Simba again because the border patrol treated us badly when they saw the dog. The agent said he was going to throw the dog into the river. He told us to get rid of him or we could not get into the vehicle. Then another vehicle came, and that's when they told my son to get into his truck with the dog, and the rest of us went with the first one. This is a quote from the family that was already traumatized by a trip they had to take. They were already treated as less than humans, and they get to our border and they're treated like this. Our shelter, our city saw this, and they decided this is not going to happen. Since the crisis at the border started, we've taken almost 450 pets that belong to some of the people that are coming to our country looking for a better future. We are happy to take the pets into our shelter. We offer free vaccinations, microchips, anything that they might need to be able to be quote unquote legal in the country. And we try to reunite them. We do our best to send them back to their families. And if we can't, if for any reason we can find the families, because remember, those people that come from other countries sometimes are returned to Mexico without an explanation, we try to find them homes. So our approach is upholding this human animal bond and doing whatever it takes to be able to keep these families together. Can you click the next slide, please? And this leads me to everything that we've been doing, the city of El Paso, mayor, city manager, our shelter, and other rescues and shelters in El Paso, including human shelters. We have been brainstorming a way to figure out a solution for this. And we believe that the best solution is co-sheltering. It's something that My Dog Is My Home has been promoting for a long time and something that we believe is going to really help us. And with this in mind, this past September, the city of El Paso approved the purchase of an abandoned school to be able to house immigrants and animals in the same location. Now, I want to take a moment to also mention the intersection between climate crisis, immigration, the housing crisis, and our education crisis, where we have, at least in El Paso, 13 schools are abandoned. They're not being used because the schools lost their funding. those spaces can be retrofitted to become cold shelters to be able to address this need. But we also have to take into consideration everything else that's going on in our city. The city of El Paso has almost 700,000 inhabitants. We are not a rich city by any means. We are very impoverished ourselves, but we still have compassion in our minds and our hearts, and we're trying to do what's right. Um, for the most part of 2022 and 2023, we've been in emergency mode. We call it, yes, an immigration crisis, but not the way the media paints it out to be. Our crisis is that, unfortunately, at some point, we've lost track of some of these people. We don't know where they are. At the border, they're being separated from their families, and yes, that includes their animals. So our crisis, our humanitarian crisis, is because we don't believe that this should be happening. We believe that, as the quote that you guys mentioned before, there's enough love for everybody, and there are enough resources for everybody. And I think the implementation of this cold shelter here in El Paso is a living proof of that. 7,000 immigrants flooded the facilities, human shelters without their animals, and another 2,000 people were held in camps outside of the border. With this new building, once it's ready to go, we're gonna have half of the building dedicated to humans, to people, our immigrants coming here. They're gonna be offered mental health resources, and their animals will be on the other side of the building being cared for by us, the animal shelter staff. I wanna read the quote from our mayor that highlights one of the main reasons why we decided to do this. Quote, one thing we learn is the need for mental services for asylum seekers coming into the United States. So we felt if somebody wants to go watch a dog play, they can go sit there and watch a dog play. If they want to walk a dog, they can go do that, and they will be able. They can do that too. If somebody wants to do none of the above, they can do none of the above. This basically means that we're going to give some peace of mind to people coming to our country. We're going to give them the resources that they need, and we're going to make sure that the dogs are taken care of. And I think at its core, that's what the PUPP Act it's trying to achieve with legislation. We did this with money approved by the city. Imagine what we can do with federal grants, with the support of that amount of money, what we can do for immigrants, what we can do for veterans, what we can do for anybody out there experiencing homelessness. Which leads me to my next point, which is the PUPP Act. I want to know if Chris, do you want to take it, Christine, or do you want me to move forward with this?
Feel free to take it, Mason.
All right. So the Providing for House People with Pets Act, it's still trying to go through the voting process. We know that right now government is trying to figure out how to govern, but I want to highlight this for you guys because I fought for my right to vote in this country. I just became a citizen in 2021. I do believe that voting changes things, and I do believe that by using our voice, we're letting people out there know that this is important for us. We want this to happen. If passed, the PUPP Act will establish a grant program administered by the USDA and the HDUE. And the funds will will help local governments like mine and other nonprofits. We have a lot of rescues here that will benefit from it. And will provide shelter or permanent supportive housing to retrofit property like the school that we just purchased to accommodate people experiencing homelessness with pets. So what we're doing here in El Paso, it's a small scale of what the PUPP Act will do if passed nationwide. Some of the resources or the services that that money will help with would be veterinary services, spaying and neuter services, vaccinations, other veterinary care, even behavior support for people with their animals. I want to emphasize the fact that this will be a law. I do believe that, but we need to vote for it and we need to support it. And we need to make sure that everybody out there that cares for animals and cares for people are aware that this is happening and we need this to go forward. The ways you can help. So obviously the very first thing will be support the PUPP Act. Right now, I will make sure that everybody gets the ASPCA legislature lookup tool for you guys. So you can talk to your legislator, to your rep, and let them know that this is something that you feel passionate about and you feel that you should pass. There's another tool. It's a easy to use web form to send letters to Congress, and the link will be hopefully posted on the chat and sent to you all, so you can use it. If you or anybody you know is willing and has a lived experience to share like mine, like Jill, like many other people out there, those things really help to make people understand why this is something that will need to happen. And other organizations can also help as well. We created a social media toolkit for you guys if you want to go ahead and use it. And other ways to basically support this is share it out there. I believe that the people that are impacted by the housing crisis are aware of the PUPP Act because it affects them. But honestly, even if it doesn't, it's something that will help a lot of people, and I think most people should be aware of it. So spread the news, let everybody know, and help us hopefully pass it for the next year.
Okay, well, thank you. That concludes our presentation. We would be happy to take questions, and also I wanted to include our contact information in case you would like to be in touch with us after today. So my information is here. Jillian, our lived experience advocate and cat expert and cat addict, her contact information is here as well. And Mason, who specializes in our policy work, his contact information is here. The last link on this slide is for you or for whatever organization or entity you work with. If you are interested in joining the PUPP Act Coalition, please sign up at the aspca.org/support PUPP link provided here. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. So my name is Pablo de Jesus. I'm the Executive Director of Unitarian Universalists for Social Justice, and we're going to do quickly some Q&A. Paulette, can you help me add myself to the spotlight, if that's possible? Okay, well, I'll just talk from the netherworld of the off-screen slide tiles and such. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. So I want to alert everyone, all 39 of you, that we put into the chat. I put into the chat an action alert for Unitarian Universalists on the PUPP Act. So you can send a message to your member of the House. Just this morning, I had a conversation with the bill sponsor, the staff in the office of the bill sponsor, Representative Crow. And their feeling is that right now, the most helpful thing that we can do is to sort of double down on what Mason said and spread the word, make members of the House and their staff and our friends and family aware of the PUPP Act, that this bill is in a stage where it needs love and tender attention from the many, many thousands of folks who care about this issue of co-housing and allowing families to include their entire family when they're seeking shelter and related services. So please look at the chat, take the action alert, help spread the word, help draw attention to this. Bottom line, as Mason alluded to, this is a really tough time in Congress. The gridlock is severe. And even bipartisan issues and pieces of legislation like this one are facing an uphill battle. There is a strong community within mostly the Republican Party that does not want to spend any new money or authorize new projects. So that means that we, if we care about this issue, need to help press the case in much the same way that we did with the pause legislation, and really alert Congress to the fact that Americans care about this. Americans are, as a whole, are compassionate and want to see sheltering services provided to both the humans and their animal companions, and that the federal government should sort of ease and grease the skids in that direction by providing grants that would allow folks to retrofit facilities like the way that Mason was describing. Because we want to see a couple of different states, or many states throughout the United States, do that, and then incentivize philanthropic behavior on a bigger scale, because that's the way things tend to work in the United States. So please take it. Please understand that the strategy for this bill right now is to get it in with something like the farm bill, because that's a important piece of legislation that needs to move. So that's the best chance for this Congress right now. That might change, 2-3 months from now, the legislative circumstance may change, but it's not likely. So for those of us who care, we really need to do that. And what I'm going to offer on behalf of UUSJ is that if folks on this call, if folks that are connected to this issue want to gather as UUs and do some of those meetings, if you bring the people, I and UUSJ will help get the targeted and select meetings. We will do that, but we're not going to be able to do it if people are not interested in the issue. We can't make meetings and then not have what's referred to as a constituent delegation behind us to do that. So with that, I'm going to open the floor. This is being recorded, so I'm going to privilege anybody who raises their hand, and their electronic hand, which is a tile under the reactions button or under the reactions tile. Raise your electronic hand so that I can find you. The system will show you to me, and then ask your questions about the PUPP Act and about the complex of issues behind it. And please keep it to questions or maybe thoughts, but not really statements, because we are running short on time and we want to honor everybody's time. So I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions. If you have a burning issue that you want to discuss, now is the time to raise your electronic hand. I guess I'll start by asking Reverend John, since he works at the center of this. Do you have any questions, Reverend John, while others are thinking about what they might want to ask?
Well, I see that Jill Marcus has her hand raised, so I would just share my time and have it be hers.
Great, Jill.
Thank you, Reverend John, and thank you. Wonderful presentation. The PUPP Act is so important. My question is, what does the support look like right now in the House and the Senate? And, I will do everything I can to make this pass, but how does it look?
Well, thank you, Jill. I would be happy to take that question. So right now, the Senate companion piece has not been introduced yet. In the House, there are 12 co-sponsors. It is bipartisan, and 12 is a fine number, but not nearly enough. And so we are really looking to community members like yourself to reach out to your Congress people to support the PUPP Act.
Okay, thank you.
And Jill, I put in the chat for you the link to the bill number, which lists the co-sponsors under the co-sponsor tab. And, Representative Crow has done a good job. When they first introduced this, there was 1 Republican on it, and now I think there's 3, maybe it's 2. But, that is mighty progress in this Congress.
I agree. And also, I'm still hopeful, because I think animal welfare, particularly companion animal welfare, is still a bipartisan issue in this country.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, it's part of the strategy has to be following up on the progress that the PAWS
Yes.
Act made, and finding all those people who care about compassionate care for animals and just alerting them, right? So for Unitarian Universalists, this is sort of like a thing that we could do if we wanted to, just go around to the different offices virtually, introduce ourselves, and say, we care about this, and we want to cite for you that since you joined this other bill, you probably want to join this new one as well. It's very doable. Will we get it past this Congress? Probably not, but we can set up success for the future. And that's so much of what legislative advocacy, and especially on justice issues, is about. Any other questions? Please raise your electronic hand so that I can see you really easily. No? Well, oh, Daniel, Reverend Daniel. Well, then you get to ask a question and segue into your own chalice extinguishing moment.
My question, which it sounds like there's so many wonderful opportunities for all of us to take back this action alert from UUs for Social Justice and UU Animal Ministry. For My Dog Is My Home, are there ways that you suggest we share this information with our congregations and communities? Like, what are good ways we can share this information with our home congregations?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I hope that everyone feels inspired to take the information that you have here and just to talk about it with your own home congregations. I'm also, Mason, Jillian, and myself, we are always taking every opportunity that we can get to speak about homelessness and animal companionship, about the need for pet-friendly emergency shelters and just permanent housing in general, affordable pet-friendly housing. And so if there's ever an opportunity to have us do something for your home congregation, we would be happy to speak with you about that.
You heard it here, folks. Christine just committed to make a visit, at least by Zoom, to your congregation. And for those of you who are involved in programming for your congregation, take her up on her offer, schedule it. Ann Baker, I think that's your hand up. It's a fleshly hand, but I think I see it. So why don't you ask your question really quickly, and then that will be the last one.
Okay, I didn't know how to find the hand thing on the computer. I'm 86 and not very tech oriented, but I have been active in animal rescue and so forth in Hendersonville and Asheville, North Carolina. And there are a lot of people that I think would be very interested in this, and I'm not sure they know about it. So can you send out something for me so that I can have that and spread the word? Absolutely. As well as the congregation that I belong to? But this is a very, we have a real problem with homelessness, and some of the animal rescue places are trying to meet some of the needs, but I think the one that's in El Paso would be very, very good for us to follow, because I've been concerned about both homeless and the animals and the immigration and so forth.
Yeah,
but anyway, I need.
If you want to go ahead and follow us, but I'll make sure,
something.
yeah. I'll make sure that I can send you pamphlets or something. I think I can send them to Christine and make sure that everything reaches you guys. But one thing that I really want to make emphasis on is that the money's there, the resources are there. It just needs a signature to be able to be moved around. And speaking to your representatives helps. I joke about this all the time with Christine. It's like, I'm very loud. I go to my city council whenever I can. I make my voice heard. And I am very annoying to them, to the point that they know me more than anybody else at this shelter. So definitely using your voice, even if it's just to send a letter or a postcard or something to your rep, it will move mountains literally, because we went from being a kill shelter in 2017 to being a resource for our community, to being at the forefront right now of immigration legislation as a shelter, and also being this close to pass universal income in El Paso. So it's really important to be loud, get in good trouble.
Yeah.
And don't break laws, obviously. Don't break the law, but obviously make your voice heard.
So I will.
Yeah, I do that too.
So Ann,
I'm not very loud, but I do that. Excuse me, what?
No worries. I'm just trying to clarify for everyone. You will get an email from UUSJ on behalf of My Dog Is My Home and the UU Animal Ministry. Anybody who registered will get a copy of the video, the link to the action, and any materials that Christine and Mason share with me. And you'll get that in a couple of days. We're humans. It's close to the holidays, so I'm not going to press Paula to get it all done tomorrow, but several days from now you'll get it. So be on the lookout for those materials. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Reverend John, any last word?
Just thanks to all of you for taking time from your evening to, follow your heart to this discussion. And I'm just so pleased with the turnout, because really any one of us adding our voice can make a difference. And with 40 of us, we can make a wave. So I hope that you commit to action. And thanks especially for the presenters from My Dog Is My Home for sharing your stories and what you're seeing.
Thank you so much for having us. It was a pleasure to be here and wonderful to connect with all of you. I hope to hear from you.
Thank you so much.
Now, Reverend Daniel Waller, my
As
friend in the struggle, please take this moment and extinguish our chalice.
as we come to the end of tonight, we just hold close those stories, those sacred stories that we learned tonight from Jillian and Mason. We remember the love that was brought into this space. We hold it, we honor it, and we carry it with us in our own lives, in our own communities. And let's work for healing and commitment and justice in this world. May it be so. And may you be well. And thank you so much to My Dog Is My Home, UU's for Social Justice, and UU Animal Ministry, and all of you for helping create tonight. It's just been a gift to be here. Thank you.
So